American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
鍵かけなかったのかしら。ダメね、私ったら。泥棒にでも入られたら大変だったわ。
Don't look in the fridge. You don't know what's in there. You might get a Kyle Rayner surprise.
あ、
お邪魔してます。
Remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. What's up, everyone? I'm the Kaiju no Kami from the Toku and Animation News Network. Today I'm taking a look at Discotek's Blu-ray release of Special Investigation Robo Janperson. As Exceedraft was coming to a close, it was time to move away from rescue police and do something completely different. Junichi Miyashita was rehired to be the head writer of the next series, which would kick off the Destiny Soldier portion of the Metal Heroes franchise. Furthermore, it would incorporate elements of the Rescue Police trilogy on top of Mobile Cop Jiban, as the villains were a mix of everyday humans, robots, and monsters. This series would become known as Toku Robo Janperson, another cop drama. Does Robo Janperson have what it takes to stand out from its predecessors? Watch to find out. The heroes. Janperson is certainly different. At the start of the show, we know absolutely nothing about Janperson. In fact, for the first third of the series, Janperson is more of a background character. He shows up when the criminals of the week are causing a ruckus.
I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. So sexy it hurts.
And then leaves when his job is done. When our series kicks off, it makes it seem like two cops and a reporter are going to be the main cast members outside of Janperson. One of the cops is even nicknamed the Batman of Sakura Doman.
確かにこの俺は桜田門のバットマンという名を取る優秀なデカだ。だがな、名前はコウモリじゃない。すいません。
Though nothing comes out of this, as the trio amounts to nothing, as they're only in a handful of episodes in the beginning.
確かにこの俺は桜田門のバットマンという名を取る優秀なデカだ。
The series fumbles around guest stars of the week until Janperson's creator returns to Japan from America in episode 17. Her name is Karu Sagusa.
よく来てくれた、カオル。
さっきはガードしてくれてありがとう。国際兵器マフィアが以前から私の研究を欲しがってるって情報があって。
Janperson was originally a robot created for military applications, but because he could not tell right from wrong, he was to be scrapped. Karu secretly reformatted him into Janperson and taught him morals and how to make his own choices.
参ったな。
大丈夫、ジャンパーソン。
大丈夫。もう一回。
She went to work in America, leaving Janperson to defend Japan from criminal threats on his own. Janperson is like Jiban if Jiban had no personality or character development whatsoever. He is there to do a job and does it efficiently. He does care for people, especially Karu and her little brother Shuhei, and a robot who joins him later on, but that is really as far as his growth goes. However, Janperson does get a truly solid moment, as seen here.
昔の俺はただの破壊ロボットだった。不要になって処分されそうになった。その時俺は生きたいと思った。その願いが通じて今の俺があるんだ。
It has been said Janperson was influenced by Shotaro Shinomori's Detective K, which makes sense as Janperson is a robot through and through. He doesn't have a human form in the slightest. He doesn't transform at all. He's just a giant purple and silver machine. Now I will say I dig his design, as purple is my favorite color. His weapons include a gun, business card, blade that attaches to his wrist. And a few cannons, one of which is provided by a robot companion that transforms into one called R-Jiko.
セットレディファイヤービッグキャノン
Junichi Miyashita provides the vocals to Janperson.
再び現れた時にはあんな姿になっていたわけか。悪い組織が彼にそのシステムの存在を教え、私への復讐へと駆り立ったのだろう。
Komine isn't given much to work with here, and he hasn't done too much work outside of voicing Janperson, so I don't know if he was limited in scope or unable to really show off his talents as Janperson. Although, unlike Tomoko Kawashima, he isn't grating on the ears. Kawashima is awful. Karu sure loves to whine with the most ear-piercing screeches imaginable. This is pretty much her character in a nutshell.
罠なのよ。1対1の対決なんて嘘に決まってんのよ。真昼の決闘なんてしゃれちゃってさ、ジョージ・真壁もいや、私は嫌よ。
カオル、いい加減にしろ。
待ってジャンパーソン、これはビルゴルディの罠よ。あなたを挑発しておびき出すためなの。
分かってる。
だったらどうして。やめなさいジャンパーソン。それを渡してしまったらあなたの機能は全て止まってしまう。戦いの中で動けなくなるなんて危険すぎるわ。
Shut up.
Shuhei Shigeo Tomita comes off as a much more competent actor than Kawashima does. And he's a freaking child.
カオル、
こいつだ。お姉ちゃんに勝負つけたのはこんなのってありかよ。
I do not like Karu in the slightest. She also gets really weird towards the end of the show. And I mean weird in a creepy sort of way. Lastly, for being a scientist, she is as bright as coal. At one point, Karu fakes her death using a life model decoy to stop the villains from going after her brother, but seems to forget about that after a while and assists Janperson, revealing to the villain she is still alive.
お姉ちゃん。お姉ちゃん。お姉ちゃん。お姉ちゃん。
皆が死んでいると思った三枝薫が生きていることが分かったのですよ。
三枝君、やはり君が。
You are dumb, and I do not like you. The best character and saving grace of the show is without a doubt Gun Gibson, voiced by Rintaro Tori. Tori was the narrator of Exceedraft, along with voicing some villains in Sentai on top of being the voice of Kamen Rider Ichigo in Black RX.
OK、 好きにしろ。だがバリアが解除されたら俺たちはあんたに構わずおさらばするぜ。後から突入してきた警察隊とドンパチやらかす羽目になる前にな。
Gun Gibson, whose name I believe was taken from actor Mel Gibson, starts the show off employed for a group of villains called the Neo Guild. He and his girlfriend Karu are tasked with keeping imprisoned robots in line. Unfortunately, Karu is killed by Neo Guild, which sets Gun Gibson out on a quest of vengeance.
キャロル、
私はあなたのパートナー。
キャロル、キャロル、キャロル。
He ends up joining up with Janperson. The duo take on crime together. The story may be a bit cliche, but Gun Gibson ends up being a really compelling character, and as I said a moment ago, the best thing about this series. Tori really does a great job at conveying Gibson's pain.
ジョージ・真壁はこの俺が地獄へ送る。そいつは誰にも邪魔させん。
One of his best moments comes in an episode that features Janperson being framed for murdering the love of another robot's life, and Gibson trying to reason with this crazed machine knowing exactly how he feels.
被害のねえ恋人をぶち殺されて罠にはめられて暴走させられてよ。挙句の果ては破壊されるしか道はねえなんて、んなひでえ人生がどこにあんだよ。俺もお前と一緒だ。恋人が殺されたんだ。その悔しさはわかる。サイレント。
I also dig the cowboy motif of Gibson's design and how the top of his head resembles a cowboy hat. Janperson typically drives a car that has a compartment that can detach to become a flying machine, while Gun Gibson rides a motorcycle. The villains. There are 3 different syndicates that Janperson becomes a nightmare for. The first is the aforementioned Neo Guild, led by a warrior in black named George Makabe.
気の短いガンギブソンのことだ。必ず自分から動き出し、誰にも救い出せない底なしの地獄に落ちるわ。
George's younger brother, Ben Fujinami, was killed by Janperson in the series premiere.
地獄で会おうジャンパーソン
Neo Guild has set its sights on replacing humans with robots, which has been quite successful up to this point as there are a plethora of disguised robots living day-to-day lives. George is played by Hiroshi Kawai.
最新最強の戦闘ロボットオメガ DX によって野望達成のための第一歩を記すのと同時にジャンパーソン貴様を地獄へ送ってやる。
Unbeknownst to Janperson and Gun Gibson, George is actually a human being that has used a robot duplicate in combat to hide the truth from the dynamic duel.
あの命の木が偽物だったとは永遠の生命エネルギーはまたも手に入らなかったのか。
George and Ben suffer from some traumatic events in their childhood that caused them to disdain humankind. I mean, it is understandable. If I were on the top floor of a burning building, I would take my chances with the elevator over a stairwell full of panicking people. In fact, quite a few of the plots revolving around Neo Guild deal with whether or not man can live with robots in harmony and even touches upon concepts of racism. Next up is the Super Science Network, led by the psychotic scientist Reiko Ayano Koji. Reiko seems to get more eccentric as the series progresses, as she is first introduced looking more like a normal everyday person before donning a more kabuki-like red and yellow outfit.
命あるものすべてが私を称える。私に喝采を送る。よくぞ地球を生き返らせてくれたと。そう。
She has a wide array of scientists under her wing.
どうなっているんだ。
それが今日からのユーのフェイスよ。ミーが開発した形状記憶細胞ね。
One unleashes a ninja ancestor from a deadbeat dad.
パパ約束したろ。シュートの仕方教えてくれるって。
ユータバコ取ってくれ。
禁煙はどうなったのさ。
そのうちにな。
This line from his son is pretty funny.
僕グレちゃいそう。
Another willingly sets a bomb in himself to show his dedication to her cause, which is intentionally kept in the dark until her final episodes.
その証として私は自らの体内に爆弾を埋め込む。毎日の時は人間爆弾となって玲子様をお守りしようと。
There's a woman who must be a Wonder Woman fan. Black RX fans should recognize actress Atsuko Takahata, for she played Maribara in there.
神となって人間を地球を蝕み続けてきた害虫どもを一匹残らず滅ぼすのよ。
It's also fitting that one episode has an army of subjects wearing the chap costumes as they pretend to be alien invaders. A handful of her creations are also monsters. The final and most interesting villain is the corporate overlord Ryuzaburo Tatawaki, portrayed by Shun Sugata.
こうなったら俺がこの手で奴をジャンパーソンを倒す。たとえ俺が俺でなくなってもな。
Sagata is best known for being Kamen Rider Z Cross, on top of appearing in Ichi the Killer, Tomy Replay, Alive, Tokyo Gore Police, The Last Samurai, and Kill Bill. Tatawaki seems to suffer from multiple personality disorder, which makes him a lot of fun. He's a very stern businessman who acts like a child whenever he is in crime boss mode, down to even enjoying a giant sucker.
Tatawaki グループ各部門我がコンツェルンの世界的発展と躍進のために以上
Out of nowhere, he will burst into a fit of rage with a deep, serious voice when his plans are foiled by Janperson.
影だ正しい作戦の第2段階に移れはまずネオギルドとスーパーサイエンスネットワークを戦わせその中にジャンパーソン・ガンギブソンを引きずり込む
Eventually, this persona takes center stage the more Janperson, and after a while, Gun Gibson stop him. He also has the best reaction in the entire series. Tatawaki reminds me a bit of God Neros and Metalder, as he has two secretaries that will do the dirty work for him for the first half of the show.
あのビームガンは彼の脳波にシンクロして強力なエネルギーを発する特別性です。これで今度こそジャンパーソン。
君が引けるチャンスカードもそろそろ最後だ。
さあ行きなさいルーゴ。
One of them is eventually killed and replaced, showing that while Tatawaki does care for them, they are expendable. During the second half of the series, Tatawaki undergoes surgery, becoming the show's one and only transforming character, taking on the name of Bill Goldie.
貴様は誰だ
Bill Goldie is a red and gold variant of Janperson, even down to having matching business cards.
Bill Goldie!
This is what really makes Tatawaki the central nemesis to Janperson and Gibson, as anything they can do, he can do better. Oh, and has another wonderful one-liner.
I'll be back.
Before becoming Bill Goldie, Tatawaki would often employ mercenaries or blackmail robots to take on Janperson.
Tsugi.
One of my favorites is Sakura, a phantom thief who hypnotizes a girl to steal a jewel for him.
Yare.
Soichiro Akaboshi is fantastically creepy with his poor fashion sense and ability to pull weapons out of thin air.
20世紀の怪盗に不可能はない。おいおいおい。盗まれたことにさえ誰も気がつかないうちに下手に動いて計画に支障が出るとまずい。ほい。はい。おい。おい。おい。おい。
The effects and music. Janperson was an ambitious show when it came to effects. No idea what happened with the soundtrack. Janperson's soundtrack was composed by Kei Wakagusa, who had previously worked on the likes of God Mars and would go on to do the music to Dirty Pair Flash, Tomika Hero Rescue Force, and Kran Shinchan. Wakagusa provides Janperson with a pretty decent soundtrack, though it is far from being my favorite Toku scores. Nevertheless, his pieces fit with what was happening on screen, and he did have some stellar sounds.
Neo Guild
ネオギルドの潜伏ロボットだ。ずっとそこに入ってろ。さあ、案内するんだ。
My biggest issue is that none of the orchestration stayed in tune in my head as others have. The opening and closing songs, sung by Susumu Oya, are okay. I definitely feel more energy from the opening when there's a chorus singing compared to the bits that don't, as the song just feels empty for me. On the other hand, I find the closing, Asayake no Lullaby, to be a total bore fest. I'm going to guess that the 1993 music budget went to Die Ranger. Funny enough, while Die Ranger had a track that sounded like the Imperial March, Janperson features one that is clearly inspired by the Mos Eisley Cantina piece. Now the effects, on the other hand, were quite good most of the time. There were a couple of areas that could have been done better. I also kind of got tired of seeing Janperson get chained up with the exact same pair of chains every so often.
Sentou モードが復活している。それも凶暴性を倍化させて、どういうことだ。
Nevertheless, there were quite a few standout sequences when it came to production values. There were also a handful of outstanding fight scenes too. The episodes. Janperson may not be the greatest show ever, but I do give it credit for trying something entirely new. As I said earlier, the first third of the show centers on the character's situation of the week, with having Janperson only show up when the need arises. It took a lot of kahunas to have the central character be a background character in his own story for a huge portion of the series. It did give the show a sense of mystery as it kept you pondering who Janperson was. On the other hand, it also hurt the show because I had no characters to be invested in that weren't villains. As such, it made the first third a real slog to get through because as cool as the gimmick was, it wore thin. There needed to be some sort of main character around to keep the audience engaged. Perhaps instead of having a pair of comic relief cops for the first few episodes, they could have focused on a serious cop working at a precinct that is investigating Janperson between crimes. The special investigation part of the title actually revolves around the cops trying to investigate Robo Janperson. The cop could have then become a partner to Janperson Gun Gibson in the second half of the show and balance out the annoyingness of Karu. Instead, we got none of that. What we got was a show that quickly grew stale, episodes that ended up being a tad boring, with only the villains keeping it engaging. Speaking of whom, this show must have been an influence on Bokenger, as the syndicates only occasionally cross paths with each other, but never work together because they all see the other as being just as much of an obstacle as Janperson is. This was a neat idea. Anyway, as divisive as I am on the early portion, I can't say there weren't solid episodes to be had during it. One revolved around an orphan robot named Angel, who is coerced into working for Tatawaki, or the factory workers he cherishes will be harmed.
に背くと大切なものをなくすことになるよ。
失うものなど私にはない。
そうかな。
Then there was an episode centered around an ancient priestess who recognized Janperson as being one of their civilization's robot defenders.
あれは鉄鋼兵。なぜここに？無敵の警備兵団。それが鉄鋼兵です。彼らによって世の悪は激減しました。
The only thing that kept this episode from being my favorite is how predictable it ended up being. Still, it was good. Ultimately though, the show was really sluggish until Gun Gibson was introduced. Thus, my favorite episodes are the trilogy containing Challenge the Strongest Robot, Clash, Janperson vs. Gun Gibson, and To Die for Justice. Challenge and Clash sees Janperson infiltrating Neo Guild's prison as a criminal bot, with a warden who looks like M. Bison. Or is it Vega?
見ての通り、空も地上も敷地内はすべて電磁バリアで覆われている。黒焦げになりたくなければくだらない考えは持たないことだ。
And being caught.
そこまでだ。ガンギブソン。これはジャンパーソンのお出ましとは光栄至極。ご苦労だったガンギブソン。後の始末は我々がつける。
Janperson faces off against Gun Gibson, which leads to Carol's death. The final part has Gun Gibson killing robots, not giving a damn as to whether or not they are still working for Neo Guild or have reformed to help society. Up until the point these episodes occurred, I was really losing my focus on this show. Afterwards, my interest was renewed and the show became more interesting even if it still wasn't perfect. The episodes are very well paced, intriguing, and feature some outstanding fight choreography and camera work. There are a couple of contenders for my least favorite episode. There's one with two false gods running around causing trouble and trapping people in their dreams.
いい夢を見るんだ、ジャンパーソン。ロボットのくせに幸せな夢なんか見ちゃって。夢も見れば人間並みの感情もまったくすごいロボットだぜ。
It also features the actors for Blue Dolphin and Hori from Ultraman Tiga.
あのはみんな夢を見てるからなんです。
夢を見てる？
これは簡単に言えば頭の中の映像を映し出す装置です。どうぞ。
出たな。まんまと引っかかったな。
Next up is one that is Ghostbusters on a budget.
あれだ。ボルダーガイズと探知機反応に。阿久津博士、お待ちください。裏飯エネルギー発射。
I think I'm going to go with the fierce battle of the stubborn robot as my top choice. In this one, bootleg Dr. Wily creates what should be an unstoppable robot who goes on a killing spree. The robot gets damaged and ends up constantly changing personalities, one of which is a kindergartner.
私は白衣の天使ナイチンゲールよ。
なんだと？
頑張って強く生きるのよ。
血だ。血をくれ。やめるんだ。
僕さんちゃんよろしく仲良くしてくださいね
It gets really creepy at times, and rightly so. Thankfully, the ending itself is tragically solid, and the robot has a pretty funny moment at one point during his personality changes.
宇宙刑事ギャバン到着
Still, this episode did not exactly inspire confidence when it came to taking Neo Guild as a credible threat. I also do want to give a shout out to one specific episode about a persistent salesman who is trying to recruit Gun Gibson to be a bodyguard for a client. Not just because you get to see Gun Gibson get freaked out by this guy stalking him.
ガンギブソンさん、実は今日はあなたのスカウトに参上したわけなんですが、ガンギブソンさん、ひどいじゃないですか。待ってくださいよ。
なんだお前、帰んなかったのか。
私だって生活かかってるんですから。ストップ！ガンギブソンさん、そのナイスボディで新しい人生つかみましょう。ね。
お前な、どうしたら諦めてくれるんだ。また出てくんじゃねえだろうな。油断なんねえやつだからな。
まだ何かやらせるつもり？
頼む、あいつが出ねえか見張ってくれ。
あいつってそいつ？
うわ、出やがった。
待ってください、ガンギブソンさん。あなたをスカウトするのはもう諦めました。
But also because it is the first ever Toku episode written by Yasuko Kobayashi. For those new to Toku, she would go on to become the head writer for Gingaman, Time Ranger, Shinkenger, Go Busters, Tokuger, Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, Kamen Rider Ryuki, Deno, and O's. The movie. The movie is your typical festival fare. It's nothing special, but at the same time, I somewhat enjoyed it. A father who works for the FBI is trying to reconnect with his daughter after her mother died because Japan. Neo Guild clowns around a bit and kidnaps her. A car chase ensues, resulting in Janperson having to save the father. Hold it. Go back. I'm starting to feel like Annie from Misery.
They just cheated us! This isn't fair! He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car!
Janperson has to deal with a group of crash test dummies, which leads to an awkward bowling scene.
必殺ヘッドボーリング。
Okay, that actually was pretty funny. It does introduce some additional goons that will show up once or twice in the show itself. Otherwise, you can skip it as neither episodes 11 nor 12 recognize this movie's plot in the slightest. The Bluray. Discotheque's Bluray is what you normally expect. Here's the front cover, the spine, the backside. Now this is where things get a bit weird because the side here on the spine, part of the text is actually missing. I don't know if it's actually showing up in focus, but it's like something was on top of the text here or something of that like. Anyway, so that's the slipcase. Here's the actual cover. The spine for that, the backside, which is the same, and then a case with a single disc and artwork inside. All 50 episodes are on a single disc in the SD format. Audio and video are slightly better than DVD, but not by much. Subtitles are standard fare. Yellow fonts for the main subs, blue fonts for the songs displayed in the upper left-hand corner. Until the last few episodes, I did not recall any misspellings or grammatical errors. In fact, I have no idea what happened in those final episodes. Perhaps the quality control person was getting tired of the show by this point. Either way, it was pretty funny seeing Gun Giban on screen, and then there was this little bit of awkwardness. I'm totally going to say Carch Me If You Can from now on. The only bonus features are a series trailer and alternate episode previews that included some promos for the movie. I really do wish Discotek would include series essays on their SD Blu-rays, and just to clarify, the movie is not included on this release. There are some elements of Janperson I really did like, only to have the show stagnate in mediocrity. It's not a series I will ever really go out of my way to rewatch, and yet it's not one I would dread revisiting. Therefore, I am going to give Special Investigation Robo Janperson a decent 3 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. If you're curious, give it a watch. Just keep your expectations low, as it's like a discount version of Jiban. The Blu-ray is solid. Until next time, bye.
song.